Carlos Alcaraz is already in the semifinals of the 2025 US Open, and his next challenge is no ordinary one. Novak Djokovic, the man who at 38 years old is still a machine when it comes to competing. Faced with this test, his coach Juan Carlos Ferrero is clear: to beat Noel, one plan is not enough. You need to be ready with three. Ferrero, who knows what it's like to be at the top of tennis, lowers the tone and speaks calmly. There's no room for euphoria or favoritism. Against the best in history, I can't say Carlos is the favorite. He's playing spectacularly, yes, but with Novak nothing is guaranteed. The key, according to the coach, is not to obsess over what the opponent does, but for Alcaraz to display his strongest game: intensity from the baseline, winning shots, and pushing Djokovic to his physical limits. Because in best-of-5 matches, time also works in the Merchant's favor. Little by little, as the hours go by, Novak may start to feel the demand. That's where Carlos has to take advantage of his youth and energy, Ferrero says. But the Spaniard has no illusions. Djokovic is a chameleon. At 38, he knows when to grind out rallies and when to shorten points. He can go from being a defensive wall to an aggressive attacker in a matter of minutes. And that's where Ferrero's preparation comes in. With Novak it's clear: you have to be ready for anything. If he changes the rhythm, if he comes to the net, if he looks for quick points, we have to be prepared to respond. As I always tell Carlos, Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C, each one has to be executed to the maximum. Meanwhile, Alcaraz smiles and exudes calm. I have everything under control. I feel very comfortable, hitting the ball really well, and with a lot of confidence. His most important decision is clear: to focus on himself, not on pressure or outside noise. For his part, Djokovic sounds defiant, sending out a message that feels like a declaration of war. They are the two best in the world. Everyone expects a final between Alcaraz and Sinner. I'll try to ruin those plans. It's a clash of two mindsets: Alcaraz's joyful confidence versus Djokovic's indomitable rebellion. The 2025 US Open will stage a semi-final that already feels like a final in advance. Carlos Alcaraz is seeking to confirm himself as the natural heir to the tennis throne, while Novak Djokovic wants to show that at 38 he can still shatter the dreams of the new generation.
With a Plan A, B and C, Ferrero and Alcaraz are preparing for all possible versions of the Serb.
Arthur Ashe is ready to witness another battle that could go down in tennis history. A generational war where only one will remain standing. Juan Carlos Ferrero, former tennis player and current coach of Carlos Alcaraz, has also shared his point of view on Jannik Sinner's current level at Roland Garros after his return to the courts, and on the new rivalry between the Italian and the Spaniard. There are several players who can beat Alcaraz, but only Carlos can beat Jannik Sinner. Do you agree with that comment? Asked Manu Carreño on El Larguero to the Valencian coach, who didn't hesitate in his reply: lately. Yes, I agree. Jannik hasn't lost to anyone other than Carlos since the US Open, or even before that. Alcaraz has the perfect style. He can create many tactical situations during a match, and that's what bothers Sinner the most. A player like Rublev, for example, who plays at the same speed and height all the time, without creating changes. It's harder for him to beat Sinner. That's why Carlos has the perfect game, added the former world number 1 and 2003 Roland Garros champion. On the other hand, Ferrero spoke about Sinner's current level after his 3-month suspension and emphasized that he's very solid and that all this time has helped him to grow physically and arrive fresh for the clay season. He's very solid, and he's come back with a lot of hunger despite being out for 3 months. I'm sure it was a very uncomfortable situation for him. But he had 3 months to grow physically and arrived very fresh for the clay season. You can see he's motivated and playing just as well as he did in Australia. We're not surprised by his level because we already knew he had it, concluded the 45-year-old coach. Novak Djokovic has made it clear once again: he never surrenders, never puts his arms down. After defeating Taylor Fritz in a tough quarterfinal match, the Serb sent a direct message to Carlos Alcaraz and to all those who thought he was finished. "I won't come out with a white flag," he said firmly. At 38, he is determined to prove he's still a threat at the US Open. Now the challenge is even greater, facing an informed Alcaraz, who hasn't dropped a single set all tournament. The battle is set, and Djokovic assures he'll give everything to prevail. Djokovic comes from a demanding match against Taylor Fritz. Although he started dominating, the American fought back in the second and third sets, forcing the Serb to bring out his best version. It was over 3 hours of battle in which Noel once again showed his character, arguing with the crowd and even with his own team, but ultimately finishing victorious. With this result, Djokovic earned his 11th consecutive win over Fritz and reached his 53rd Grand Slam semifinal. In New York, he also equaled Jimmy Connors with 14 semifinals, a record that confirms his relevance at the top despite his age and the physical doubts that have lingered this season. But what stood out most was his message after the match. He acknowledged that Alcaraz and Sinner are dominating the circuit and that everyone expects a final between them, but he made it clear he doesn't intend to surrender. With firm words, he said he wouldn't wave the white flag, that he'll fight for every point, and that no one should count him out before playing. The Serb knows the challenge is enormous. Alcaraz arrives fresh, full of confidence, and at a very high level, but Djokovic trusts in his experience and his ability to suffer in key moments. It's a generational duel, and Noel doesn't want to be a spectator at the youngsters' party. Looking ahead to the semifinal, Djokovic admitted he'll need his best physical and mental version. "I have 2 days to recover, and I must be ready for long rallies and to go to a fifth set if necessary," he explained. The key, according to him, will be to withstand Alcaraz's pace and take the match to the limit. Throughout his career, the Serb has shown he thrives on the biggest stages, when the challenge seems impossible. And now, against an Alcaraz looking for his second title in New York, Djokovic wants to prove he can still compete head-to-head with the best. The prize would be historic, lifting his 25th Grand Slam and the 101st title of his career. An achievement that would further solidify him as an absolute legend of tennis, but to get there he must overcome an Alcaraz who is in unstoppable form and eager to avenge his loss in Australia. With this showdown, the US Open once again becomes the stage for tennis's ultimate battle, Djokovic's experience against Alcaraz's explosive youth. Both know there will be no room for error and that every detail could decide the match. Djokovic has sent a clear warning: he doesn't consider himself defeated before stepping on court. Even though all predictions point to a final between Alcaraz and Sinner, he insists he'll fight with his heart and his tennis to spoil the plans of the new generation. The semifinal at the US Open promises to be an epic duel between two worlds, the eternal champion and the young star destined to rule the future. Tension is in the air, and Djokovic's words confirm it: there will be a battle until the very last point. Carlos Alcaraz has made a clear and firm decision ahead of the most anticipated clash of the US Open, to face Novak Djokovic with confidence and complete control of his game. The Mercian, world number 2, not only arrives in the semifinals without dropping a set, but also insists that right now I have everything under control. With a smile on court, feeling comfortable and enjoying every shot, Alcaraz approaches one of the most important matches of his career with a mindset that puts him at the center of all attention. After sweeping Jiri Lehecka in the quarterfinals, Alcaraz left no doubt about his form. He won in 3 sets, dominating the match and exhausting his opponent physically with constant attacks. But what stood out most was the serenity with which he spoke at the press conference. "I feel very comfortable for the next rounds. I've probably played my best match at the US Open. I'm hitting the ball really well. Physically very well," he said, confirming he's in the best possible shape before facing the Serb. Alcaraz's most important decision isn't tactical, but mental. Instead of obsessing over Djokovic, he has chosen to focus on himself, his tennis, and the feelings that guide him. "I have everything under control. I feel very calm and confident heading into the semifinal," he said with certainty. This choice reflects a degree of maturity that even his coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, has highlighted as one of the biggest differences in this tournament compared to others. The Mercian doesn't hide that he feels in full form. Each match has demanded something different, and he has adapted with authority, not conceding a single set. That ability to respond firmly to what each match requires is proof that his confidence is no coincidence, but the result of constant, well-focused work. In this sense, the decision to concentrate on his own game and not on Djokovic's is part of that mental evolution that sets him apart in this US Open. The objective is clear: to win his second title in New York. He already did it in 2022, but now the story repeats itself with an even tougher road. First, he has to beat the greatest of all time, Novak Djokovic, and then, if everything follows the expected script, face Jannik Sinner in the final. Alcaraz knows it, but he isn't overwhelmed. "Focusing on myself and how I'm doing," he repeats as a mantra, convinced that his current tennis is enough to compete with anyone. Another crucial aspect is the atmosphere. Alcaraz shows himself smiling, enjoying being on court, and that's key to his tennis. When he plays relaxed, confident, and joyful, his level rises exponentially. That positive attitude, beyond technique or tactics, is the true engine that can make the difference against Djokovic, a rival used to the toughest stages. Finally, the very fact of having won Roland Garros this year gives him an extra dose of confidence. He already knows what it means to win in 2025, and he wants to repeat it in New York. The combination of mental maturity, physical freshness, and personal motivation makes Alcaraz a formidable rival, ready to prove he's prepared to once again defeat Djokovic in a Grand Slam semifinal.